'Cause
The leaders of both unions have been very careful to say they are not doing this now because of the Trump administration. They've apparently been talking about the possibility
Mr. Chairman, it appears we have quorum, so whenever you're ready to get started, we are ready on our end.
All right. Carl, if you want to change the slide. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the January 9th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case. Excuse me? Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has an opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon again and mute your microphone. Call-in users can unmute using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by a Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Dan, if you want to review the meeting procedures.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To go over the virtual meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comment received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting, and any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff.
You're here.
The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
All right.
Just as an additional note of housekeeping, if you're not speaking, you're in the middle of your presentation, if you can keep your microphones on mute, that would be helpful.
All right. Thank you, Dan. With that, we'll call the January 9th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Dulick? Interim Director Fields? Councilmember Gray?
Here.
All right, Councilmember Gray, that was you, Interim Director, right? Sorry, I jumped
Yes,
ahead.
that was me. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Mr. Sambury?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick? Dr. Williams?
Here.
And Ms. Trout. And Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum. In addition to commission members, we will be having some representatives of our law department joining us. And then we have Jessica Beam, Rachel Pierce, Carl Brunges, and myself from the Landmarks office present.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Referring to the agenda, we'll start with the certificates of appropriateness. We'll call case number 24014, Market Square Historic District, the Carriage Company at 2168 West 25th Street. Would the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
Sure. My name is Joe Delray. I am the Director of Construction and Design for 2168 West 25th Street. Joining me are our architects, Daniel Sirk and Larry DeVita from SA Group. And we are very, very excited and very honored to be able to present the Carriage Company today. So the Carriage Company is the proposed redevelopment of the city block at 2168 West 25th Street. This was most recently identified or known as the Voss Aerospace facility. But as we'll talk a little bit about in the presentation, this series of 18 separate buildings has a very long and interesting history. It's a very complicated project, but also a very historic relevant project, particularly at this key gateway in Ohio City. The project started out as a carriage manufacturing plant, first making horse-drawn carriages and then growing into electric vehicles, and has basically lived its entire life as an industrial or manufacturing use. Our plan calls for the redevelopment of the buildings into an active urban village, including 139 apartments, office space, some retail, and indoor parking. This district map kind of gives you a feel for the relationship between the site and of the neighborhood. I do want to point out that the property that we'll be talking about today extends from West 26th Street down to West 25th, and from Chatham to Monroe. So even though the outline here is showing the parking lots, we are not presenting or proposing for anything for the parking lots at this time. We're just looking at the redevelopment of the historic buildings. You can see the natural connections to both the Red Line Greenway, the commercial district on West 25th Street, the United Bank building, the West Side Market, and of course the new Intro Cleveland apartment complex across the street. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the next few slides are going to show some examples of both existing condition and historic pictures. Again, as I mentioned, the project started off its life at the end of the 19th century with the construction of the first few buildings on West 25th Street. Initially, it was the Roush Lang Carriage Company. This is great. I have a book here that shows pictures of the different cars that they made on the site. They started off making horse-drawn carriages in 1884 on this property, and then eventually moved into making electric vehicles. One of the forefathers of the modern day, car. Later, it was the Roush Lang Company was acquired by the Baker Electric Car Company, and again, they were making electric vehicles here well into the 1930s. If you can go to the next slide. It's going to show some more details. Again, showing the interior of the historic building. One of the things I really want to point out to the committee for context is the picture at the bottom center. This is showing West 25th Street Place, which is a vacated alley. That alley still very much exists, but if you look to just the left of that image, you'll see that somewhere in the 1970s or 80s, we believe, the owner of the factory built let's call it a garage, but a structure over those alleyways there, enclosing them. You can see that picture on both the left and the right of the bottom of the screen there. Our proposal is to open up those alleys again, to daylight the alleys and expose the facades back to the street. Again, creating this interesting network of pedestrian thoroughfares through the property. Dan, if you'd be so kind of go to the next page. Again, showing some of the historic elements of the property. You can see it's got a very strong industrial feel. Wide open spaces, numerous historic columns and joists. And I think this is a good time to mention that this project has been, is receiving federal and state historic tax credits. We've been working very closely with both the National Parks as well as the State Historic Preservation Office. And so all of our design work that Larry and Daniel will be speaking to in a little bit carefully incorporates elements on both the exterior and the interior of the building. So when you're looking at these proud columns, we have to preserve them and highlight them inside of our apartments. The sawtooth roofs, and the angled ceiling detail, that'll all be highlighted and preserved. Looking at the exterior building, the window systems, the exterior fenestrations, all of this is being preserved and either being left as it currently is today or being restored in line with the historic makeup of the building. Dan, go to the next slide. So this is our site plan. Again, we're going to be looking at the buildings between West 25th, which is at the bottom of your screen, and West 26th, which is below the parking lot there, between Monroe and Chatham. The project extends from the parking lots that are going to front on Chatham all the way over to Monroe. What this does show here on the site plan is the pedestrian alley that I referenced. As we mentioned, there are buildings or coverings there. They will come down and we will be restoring the facades on the buildings at the first floor there to re-energize and to activate them. We also hope to put some active uses at key corners of this project. Our site plan calls for retail to occur mid-block next to the existing parking lot and then across the alleyway. And then we are going to put our residential amenities at 26th Street and the alley. So our leasing office and our primary residential lobby will front on the pedestrian alleyway, as will our fitness center, with the hopes that that brings people into the alleys, which will be activated and engaging. You can also see that there is plenty of surface parking, not surface parking, I'm so sorry, enclosed parking planned for the site. And that will be identified for the residential users of the property as an amenity to them. One last note before we move on is the existing parking lot noted at the lower part of the page, just above the word West 25th Street. That parking lot will remain as an existing parking lot for the purposes of this conversation, but we do have some exciting plans for that. We'd like to see that turned into an exciting and engaging public place, a plaza of sorts. An affiliated company of ours owns the Citizens Pie building. And so we could imagine both of those restaurants on the left and right of the existing parking lot spilling into this space, creating a plaza of sorts that both engages with the pedestrian alleys as well as with West 25th Street and the neighborhood beyond. Dan, could you go to the next slide? At the corner of Chatham and 25th Street, we also own both sides of the vacated West 25th Street Place alley. They're both parking lots currently. Our plan is to unify them into one consistent parking lot. This will be surface parking for guests coming into the site. We recognize that this is a gateway piece and an important part of the West 25th Street streetscape. So we did retain the services of Daru Landscape Architects to design a parking lot that meets the city's requirements for landscaping, fencing, and setbacks. So if you can go to the next 2 pages, it'll show some details about what we've planned for the parking lot, including, the landscape plan and fencing plan. And the next one as well. Okay, we're going to go, the next few slides will just take you through the buildings. As we had mentioned, this is this whole block is an evolution, right? It starts in 1889, I believe, with buildings number 2 and number 4. If you look closely at the site plan, you'll see little circled numbers, either below or above the different buildings. Because like we mentioned, this is not one single factory or one single building. It's actually 18 buildings sutured together over time and structure. So each building is given a number. The site again starts with buildings 2 and 4. I think those are the oldest on the site. And then every year or a couple of years, as needs grew or buildings burnt down, the owners would add new buildings to the site, making it into the facility it is today. What this page shows is the first floor plan in a little bit more detail. It shows the areas that we've identified for retail. Also shows our service corridors in Building 15, our residential amenities in Building 15, the leasing office, lobby, and public-private bike parking station in Building 13, as well as the indoor parking garages, each one separate, Building 11, which will be accessed off of Chatham, Buildings 16, 17, 18, which will be accessed mid-block off of West 26th Street through a historic entryway, and Building 7 and 6, which is accessed off of Monroe, again through an existing garage door there. If you'd be so kind to go to the next slide. The next slide is going to take you up through the building. As I mentioned, this is a primarily residential project with 139 planned apartments. There is some office space identified in buildings 5 and 6. And right now we are identifying that as the future corporate office for our company, moving our offices from downtown Cleveland into Ohio City. You'll also note there's some co-work space identified in Building 17, and then the rest are these really, really cool apartments that we'll get into some of the detailing in a little bit. I think it's significant to talk about the interiors because we've worked so closely with the State Historic Preservation Office and their criteria of preserving some of the industrial elements that makes this building unique. Dan, if you go to the next slide real quick, you'll notice how the building steps back. So at this point now we're on the 3rd floor. So some of the buildings are not fully full floor, so they step away. At this point we're fully we are fully residential. You'll notice a really cool element here, and that is a bridge that connects both Building 13 and Building 2. That's a historic bridge that you'll see in some of the renderings that we have shown and will show. That bridges over the alley. And so while we're going to demolish the 1st floor structure that covers up the alleys, the bridges that have always been there will remain. And they really add a unique feature for both street engagement and hopefully maybe an opportunity for art and activation a little bit later on. One more slide. This shows the 4th floor. And again, this is the top floor of the apartments. A mix of 1-bedrooms and some really great 2-bedrooms with views of downtown, views of Ohio City, and views of the neighborhood to the south and west. Next slide is our roof plan. And the reason I included the roof plan in this presentation is just to kind of illustrate some of the work that we've been doing with SHPO and with NPS. Part of achieving our historic tax credits also means respecting sight lines and view lines and not cluttering them up with mechanical equipment. So anytime we have placed new equipment on the roof for HVAC or for other purposes, we had to carefully consider where those pieces landed, either incorporating screening or incorporating just placement so that you don't see them from West 25th Street at key intersections. The next slide. So this is going to bring us through our facade elevations. These are drawings that we submitted to NPS and SHPO about a year ago as a part of our tax credit application. And I'd like to really quickly here turn it over to Larry DeVita from SA Group, as I'd like him to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done to preserve elements throughout the building on the facades.
Good morning, Happy New Year to everyone. So for the Carriage Works building, I mean, it is going to remain pretty much what it looks like, but being repaired and restored. The vast majority of the windows in the building were replaced in the early 2000s and would remain. And we've been sort of working with the people at SHPO National Park Service about how to replace windows and door openings, especially along the 25th and 26th Street sides, and make the appearance consistent with the historic character of the building. Where we have overhead doors, we're doing panelized overhead doors, where we're doing inserts for just some panels to close in openings that are no longer being used. I mean, making them look sort of like historic overhead doors, where we're replacing a few windows, either matching what is, on the rest of that facade, or where we're doing more extensive window replacements, they would be windows that would be emulating what was there originally from historic photographs. So basically, what you see is what's there historically, and the ideas being that we would be matching, coordinating, or if we're adding new windows, making them different enough that you can tell that they're not historic. And so, like Joe was saying, we've worked extensively with both the consultants that MRN has, and with lots of conference calls with the people at the State Historic Preservation Office to work through these things. Some of the, things that we're definitely, sort of trying to keep and preserve are, there's a nice historic door off of the alley. Like Joe was saying, the bridges, trying to maintain the appearance of those bridges, because I think that those are very important, especially in the alleyways, and working a lot with the brickwork, repointing, rebuilding only where we need to, repairing spalled brick, those kinds of things to maintain the building for another 100 years. So I think that's it. If there's any questions, let me know, but I'll toss it back to you, Joe.
That was great, Larry. Thanks. One thing I'd also like to point out as we go through these images here. So because there's an alley that is going to be opened up, you're seeing both the street elevation, that's at the bottom, and then above it, you're seeing what the view is from the actual interior of the alley. So this is the west elevation. So this is looking at the property from West 26th Street, and then of course walking in on West 25th Place and looking up at those restored storefronts. I'm gonna stop right here real quick because it's a small detail, but I think it's worth mentioning. If you look at the bottom of the page, that's the view of Monroe, and you'll see along the bottom of building 18 there, they're not beautiful, but they're existing right now. These are some glass block windows that are boxed in with some masonry block around it. And this is a parking garage, right? That's an indoor parking garage. So we need to provide some CO ventilation. And so we'll be actually working very carefully to match our vent and our exhaust ports with those glass blocks. So from the pedestrian standpoint or the view of the building, you won't notice any difference. It's going to look as it does today, but we'll carefully integrate all of these penetrations and additions to the building so that they are in line with the historic nature of the property. And again, this is also showing the view down the alley at mid-block at the top. And then one more page to show you from the north view. This is at the top looking at Hancock, the restored Hancock Alley, looking south. And then at the bottom is from Chatham, looking down the alley. And you can see that bridge and so prominently displayed and now kind of more noticeable than it even is today with the alleyway opened up. All right, the next slide. So next few slides are going to show both the existing condition as well as some proposed rendering. So this is buildings 1 and 2, as well as that parking lot that you may be familiar with as it looks today. And then the next slide is an artistic rendering showing what the building will look like when we're done. As I mentioned, we have these ideas for some engaging first floor retail. For the purposes of this picture, we took a little bit of artistic license showing the retail on the first floor. As those retailers and restaurants come into full focus, we'll obviously come back before this group for any storefront work that needs to happen. But for now, this kind of illustrates the vision of the project, showing that alley entrance mid-block, where it says the Carriage Company, with retail to the left and right and residential above. The next slide is a similar view, but looking north. as it is today. Real quick note about this. This is a funny story. These buildings here that you're looking at, Larry, stop me if I'm wrong. Building 4 is actually quite old. It's 1884, right?
Correct. So building 4 is the two-story piece there with the big green overhead door, but it was originally a paired building with building 2 across the alley.
Right. But there was a fire there in the 1950s, and the facade caught fire, part of the building burnt down, and you actually can still see some of the scorch marks in building 5 when you go up in the higher levels. When they restored the building, they restored it in a 1950s style architecture firm, which is now also covered by the historic requirements. So that's also a historic facade. The next slide shows again our vision for the site, how folks will be able to engage with both the retail as well into the alley structure there. And then the next slide is going to show you a straight on view of the property, illustrating the building that we are proposing to take down. This was a garage with a second story that was added sometime late last century. And then the next slide maybe gives you a peek down the alleyway there. Looking down to 26th Street, looking into that little network of alleys, and then of course over to the fitness center and the residential lobby just beyond this picture there. Last couple of images that I wanted to show, the next few slides, is another close-up of the alleyway entrance. Next slide. Are some just details of historic significance. Again, the windows with the great archways at the top, some of the historic doors, this really cool bridge that joins together 2 buildings, buildings 13 and 15. That'll actually become an apartment unit. That's the top right-hand corner of the picture. And of course, the bridge, the tall green bridge that connects all 4 floors, that will be a residential pass-through. And again, I think there's a lot of opportunity and potential with how we celebrate these bridges as well. That blue door is actually a storefront door that's right now covered by the alleyway. That'll become a entry door again. Next slide. So one of the big things that we had to do when working with NPS and SHPO was to both look at the interior and exterior elements of the project. And so that's one of the reasons we're showing this floor plan here. As you can see, there are these little like bump out and carve outs along the demising walls between the apartment units. And what you're seeing there in those little squares, those are the historic columns. We have to highlight and celebrate those columns in each unit as they come up. And it's just another element of how we are going to be preserving the industrial nature of this building through our redevelopment. Other things that have to be incorporated is wood flooring and exposed ceiling. If you go to the next slide. Actually, one more. This shows a picture of those columns that I referenced, as well as the open ceiling condition as it is today. And then the next one is going to show you a rendering of the interior of the unit as we intend on presenting it with that exposed ceiling, with the exposed ceiling joists, the carefully positioned HVAC duct that does not interact with the exterior windows. When you're looking in, you won't see spiral duct, you'll just see, you know, the lofty kind of nature of the building, wood floors, as well as modern appliances, energy efficient appliances, and of course those columns that we're preserving there right about mid of the picture. Our hope is to start construction later this spring, and we'd love to bring this project online at the end of next year. And so with that, I thank you guys for the opportunity and look forward to questions.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Dan, we have a design review committee report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project went before the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee at their December 19th, 2024 meeting. The committee recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with the condition that staff review final materials and details. including the exploration and implementation of sidewalk bike parking, and that attention be paid to the pedestrian experience along the alleys. Essentially, we didn't have all like the level of detail that we typically do for final approval, but the committee felt comfortable moving it along, knowing that SHPO and National Park Service would be approving the final design through the tax credit process, and that staff could look over those details once they were established and prior to signing off on any permits.
All right. And the landmarks staff report and recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are in agreement with locals' recommendation. We're happy to see that they're working closely with the State Historic Preservation Office and look forward to seeing signed part 2 when that's ready. We are generally in support, and more information will be needed to be submitted to staff before we can sign off on any permit on details for materials, specs, anything for the exterior, and then noting that future signage and lighting would need to return for review.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'll open it up for the commission questions and comments. Dan, you'll have to help me out picking out any raised hands. All right, I'll start with my comments. Thank you very much for the presentation. I will say that I had a hard time myself following, based on these elevations, particularly an understanding of actually what windows and doors will be replaced. I don't know if graphically you're trying to identify those that will remain versus those that will be replaced. But can you give us a sense of, you said that many of the windows had been replaced in the early 2000s. Are there existing examples of historic windows that you're using as a guide for the replacements? How's that working?
Okay, so we are not exactly identifying what is new. So basically, everything on the second, third, and fourth floor, probably 90% of that is existing to remain. Those are the replacement windows that I mentioned from the early 2000s. There are a few windows. Let's see here. Drawing to show you. On drawing A7, there are windows that we are opening up on building 7. I don't know if you can go to the drawing A7. So if you look in the lower parts of the drawings there to the right-hand side, there's third and fourth story windows sort of above. So those windows would sort of replicate what was there historically. We have photographs, and there are some historic windows that we've measured. So that would be, something that we haven't sent to SHPO National Park Service yet. We're working with window manufacturers, seeing how we can meet their sort of requirements for mullion size and those kinds of things. But that would be actually the biggest location where we would be replicating or coming up with something very close to what was there historically. Otherwise, like I'm saying, the vast majority of these things are things that are in place, or there are some windows in the Voss plant where they put in a solid panel within the window frame. So we're taking that out and replacing it with glass that matches the adjacent windows and those kinds of things. So like I said, the vast majority of this is either existing or matching what's there right now, with one big exception. And then obviously wherever we're putting in new like entry doors into some of the amenity spaces, like if you look on the same page there on the upper left-hand side, building 13, the storefront for the entry into the leasing office would be something that's new. And like I said, we've been working with SHPO to, it's like, what are we matching and what are we, making look new? And so, I mean, they're fine with, a storefront in an overhead door opening, and it shouldn't look historic. And so we're playing that sort of fine line between, what do you want to match and what do you want to differentiate? And I mean, as long as we're coming up with some sort of consistency, and I think that that's what these elevations show, is that there's nothing that we're doing that's like, so super modern that it's not going to fit, or that we're trying to replicate things that were never there.
All right. And what's your anticipated timeline for developing the details and defining the scope for submission to SHPO for SHPO approval?
Well, MRN is bidding the project as we speak, and I mean, I would anticipate as soon as we have somebody who's going to be working on the windows to start working with them to develop shop drawings and those kinds of items. I don't know exactly what the timeline is, but I mean, it would be in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I can speak more detail about that, Larry.
Okay.
We have sent out that full package of drawing. We have a 98% complete set of drawings that we've actually submitted for both permit as well for bidding. And so we've submitted the window package to 2 different vendors, and they're getting us shop drawings by the end of the month.
And it'll be those shop drawings that'll represent the submission to SHPO.
Yes. And again, I'd like to just, point out too, the key areas where windows are being replaced are areas where they're mainly bricked up. So on this drawing, building, I believe it's 6, this is the southern facade from Monroe. That's currently a blank facade where they bricked up the windows. So we'll be putting windows in there for the residential units above. Those will be done in a way that we actually talked with SHPO on Monday about our intent for building respective but not historically replicated windows. And then the other area where you're going to notice a detail, if you go back 2 more pages, bingo. If you look at building 15, so this is a building as seen from the alleyway. If you look at building 13, you'll see those white, that whited out section. That is a bridge, right? So you'll get the cross section of the bridge. But if you look at building 15, you'll see a couple windows that almost look like a Juliet balcony on them. And that's another bridge that will actually be coming down. And so we have to put in its place some new windows. And so what we're proposing here is a modern window with a wrought iron railing acting as like a smoker's balcony or Juliet balcony that is designed to imitate and reflect the fire escape on the north facade of that same building. So a lot of these details have been really thoughtfully kind of integrated, and again, all run through SHPO for their understanding and approval.
Okay. I'm still looking. Michelle, you have your hand raised?
Yes, Miss Anderson has her hand up.
Michelle, comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is a great project. I'm glad to see this is moving along. I am very happy to see that you're restoring the network of alleyways that were original to this parcel. Something I wanted to see happen on the intro that didn't. So that's very exciting to me. I have a question regarding buildings 1 and 2. I believe they face West 25th Street, and they're some of the older buildings. And I was wondering if the original buildings had, like decorative cornices. If there's any, if you've done any research on the original elevations, and if that was found to be present originally.
Larry, can you speak to that? Because I've seen some historic pictures that do not show any kind of ornamental or decorative cornices.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. My guess is that there probably was a cornice on building 2. It seems a little blank at the top. We don't have any historic pictures or any evidence of that, and that's yes. So that's about the best I can give you is probably, but we don't know what exactly it looked like.
Okay, as a follow-up, did that come up with SHPO at all? Did they bring SHPO? Did they bring up the?
And to answer that, the answer is no. It's never come up as an issue for them.
Okay, all right. Yeah, those are my questions and my comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any other commissioners with their hands raised, but I have to say that typically we would see much more detail and much more specifics in terms of materials and mutton sizes and mutton layouts, that kind of thing. And recognizing that this is being submitted to the National Park Service and SHPO, and we know very well their requirements. But I personally have a hard time deferring to them completely with regard to having an understanding in terms of the scope and the detailing, specifically for the window and door replacement. And I wonder if the applicant would consider perhaps the commission moving forward with approval of selective demolition so that you can open up the alleys and keep the project moving forward, and then come back with the details that are being developed to define the window replacements for our review, consistent with the timeline that you're working under with SHPO.
I can definitely appreciate that request. I am hoping to get full appropriateness and continue to work with staff or members of the commission as some of these details do come up. Because so many of these windows are being preserved and almost all the existing fenestrations are being preserved on the first floor, there isn't a ton of detail that isn't being shown on these plans. I am happy to send some detailed cross sections through Dan and staff to be shared with commissioners. But
There's really no other format other than these commission meetings for the commission members to review those details. So I'm not completely comfortable just having that responsibility laid upon the staff. Given that, this is a wonderful, wonderful project, and I'm sure I speak for myself, but probably the sentiments of my fellow commission members that we're thrilled to see this project move forward. But yeah, I just, typically we would see much more detail with regard to some of these key elements for final approval.
Yeah, and I guess if I can jump into the chairman's point, are there specific elements of the project that you need to start moving forward on now? Like we have a full permit set pending for us, and that's a lot of details, and I can't sign off on something if I don't know what the windows are going to look like exactly. It sounds like you're a little ways off from nailing down some of those details with SHPO and getting that final sign part two. So is there, I don't know if there are elements you could pull out and have a separate, permit for those that we could sign off, like Bob said, Mr. Chairman said selective demolition, or if there are other elements, and then
Well,
follow
yeah,
up with
I
those
mean,
details.
sure. I guess the challenge would be we could pull out the windows and come back and have another conversation about the detailing next month when I have those shop drawings. Our timeline is such that we are truly hoping to close on our financing as well as our bonding on February 28th with a hopeful start in March. And we have to move aggressively on that because there are the tax credits in place. The tax credits have to be put into service sometime in 2026. So I'm highly motivated to kind of keep this project moving along to whatever degree I can. But that being said, with respect to the details, I'm sure we could put something together and bring it back to the commission for further review.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate that. And I will just open it up to my fellow commission members. I will entertain a motion, and the motion can be for final approval of this project as presented, or it could contain a condition that the windows be excluded, windows and doors, I would say, excluded from approval at this point, and to be approved when further details are presented. So if the commission wants to put forward a motion, we could entertain that.
Looks like Miss Anderson has her hand up. I don't know if it's from before, if it's gone back up. Oh, you're muted,
Michelle?
I'm sorry. Yes, I will make that motion that we approve the project as presented with the exclusion of the windows and doors, and for them to be, the details for the windows and doors to be brought back to the commission.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Mike Sandberg.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Interim Director Fields?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg?
Yes.
Mr. Krasik stepped in midway through this presentation. Mr. Krasik?
I will abstain since I didn't hear the entire presentation.
Thank you. Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously with one abstention.
All right, thank you very much. And to the applicant, we very much look forward to this project moving forward and looking forward to having you come back with further details. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year, all.
All right,
Thank you.
too. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our second case, 25001, Franklin, West Clinton Historic District window replacement at 5810 Franklin Boulevard. Would the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
I already did.
Is the applicant there for 5810 Franklin Boulevard? Dan, do you see anything on your end?
I believe somebody's mute, the applicant is muted.
Yeah, I think they're just muted, like Carl said.
Can you
There
unmute
we go.
them?
We can't unmute, but it looks like maybe they've unmuted.
They look unmuted now.
I'll get it.
The applicant, please introduce yourself and tell us about your project, 5810 Franklin Boulevard.
You know, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm the owner.
All right, I
We
can
can
hear
hear
you now.
Okay. First of all, what I'm asking for is I'm asking for 4 windows.
Could
In
you
the front of my
introduce yourself,
house.
please? Could you introduce
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry. I apologize. My first name is Neil and my last is Farrell. And I've owned the house since 1988. And I do own a lot of property within the city of Cleveland. And, you know, I'm not technical. I apologize for that.
That's fine.
I think I've been up before, but, you know, how I operate, everybody on the commission, I operate like the Amish, you know, with the horse and a buggy. You know, this stuff, I don't get it, okay? So I apologize for that first. But first of all, I'm asking for 4 windows in the front of the house. I'm not changing the look whatsoever. What I'm doing, I'm changing the efficiency, okay? The house was built back in 1927. And it's like us driving around in a 1927 automobile today in this kind of weather. I want a 2025 automobile. It has the heated seats, air conditioning, power windows, power seats. That's what I'm looking for in my windows. And the person that's living there, he's been there. He's a Section 8 tenant. He's been with me for many, many years. If you look at the windows that's recessed by the front porch, those are in his living room. One of the other windows, the tall one, that's also in his living room or a vestibule when you come in. And the other tall window is right outside in the hallway. He's paying the heating bills. And he's asked me if we could do something. What I've done, I've went to Universal Windows because I've heard such good things about them. And numerous people have, you know, recommended them, and they do really good work. They have a good product, and I choose them for that reason. So I'm trying to help, you know, my tenant and just being considerate and helping him for me to replace these windows for him, so he could, you know, get a little break on his, you know, his heating bills. So I'm asking that we can replace those windows, please. I like that picture better. The other picture looked terrible. The one you just had.
All right. And can you tell us about the detailing of the new windows versus the existing window? I understand that you're not the contractor. Or I don't know if if there's a representative from the contractor available to talk about the specifics of these windows, their material and performance, and how they match the existing sash.
The only thing is, they're going to be efficient. They're going to be vinyl, but you know, the new windows, what they do is they have that air that's in between the panes, and you know, the look won't change whatsoever. You know, the look will be the same. I'm looking for the efficiency for my tenant, you know, because he's paying high heating bills. You know, if it's approved, that would be great. But even if it's not approved, okay, I mean, I don't pay the heating bills. I'm looking out for my tenant. I'm being considerate of what he's going through. He's on a fixed income, and you know, I don't know where my representative is. You know, he's been here before, you know, but I wasn't here, you know, in these kind of meetings. And but Universal, they have a good product and, they're good people to work with. And I've heard nothing but good about Universal Windows. So,
You have external lights. It doesn't change the appearance.
so, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say about,
All right.
what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, if that concludes your presentation, that's fine.
Hi, sorry, I don't
I'd
mean
like to add
interrupt.
one more thing. Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
When I bought the house back in 1988, okay, there was a elderly gentleman that lived next door. His house looked just like my house, with aluminum siding on it. Well, what next thing you know, he went to like a board like this. I don't know what he was doing, but the next thing you know, all the aluminum siding was off the house. You should see it today. That man is deceased. But if you pull into my driveway and look over at that house, first of all, I don't want that to happen to my house because that's insulation for my home. But if you look at the house next door, I even went to him, go, why are you doing this? He goes, well, we're in a historical district and this has to be done and that has to be done. The place is falling apart. It looks terrible. The wood, the windows, I don't want that to happen to my house. So I believe the address there would be, mine is 5810. That's probably 5806, if I had to guess.
All right. All right, thank you. Dan, did this go to design review?
Sorry, yes. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on the 18th of December. And a lot of discussion was had on the placement of windows on the primary facade. The applicant at the time had mentioned that there are 4 windows replaced with the vinyl double hung, foil capped in aluminum. The end goal of replacing new windows on the home as well as siding. And so the committee was concerned overseeing a patchwork approach on the home and wanted to, have a clear picture of the full renovation for the home and not just seeing a few windows at a time for review. So they recommended denial with the reasons that they want to be able to provide or get a better idea of the full scale of replacement for this home, even if it's not being done all at one time, but a full idea for the committee for that, as well as the desire to see a higher quality materials on the front facade of a home.
All right, thank you. And Landmark staff report and recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think staff generally agrees with the local. We haven't seen a lot of close-up or detailed evidence that the windows are in need of replacement, but understand that windows of a certain age, are surely starting to show their age. We I guess generally stand by our policy, our window replacement policy, and feel that any replacements on the front should be of higher quality than the sides and rear. But really, I think seeing a comprehensive plan for all the windows on the house and then the other work he's intending to do, not to say he has to replace all the windows now or is, committing to anything, but just if we could approve a comprehensive plan for the building instead of that piecemeal approach, then when he came in for the different elements, over the next however many years or whatever, staff could sign off based on that approval, so he wouldn't have to, come back in a year when he wants to do, the windows on the first floor, or if he wants to look at siding or whatever it is. So, yeah, we just, I think, would appreciate the comprehensive approach. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Okay, before I open it up for commission comments and questions, I would like the applicant to respond to the comments from the Design Review Committee and Landmark staff with regard to consideration of the development of or give us an understanding of what your plans are for any future window or siding replacement that you might have planned for the house. Is there anything other than these 4 windows that you anticipate doing?
Well, I just want everyone to know there that I appreciate, you just taking the time and doing this. But the reason that I'm doing this is because my tenant, who is Section 8 on a fixed income, he doesn't have the money to pay for these heating bills. And look at those ones that are in the very front, those real tall ones. The one on the right-hand side, that is in his living room. It leaks. The one gentleman just prior to me talking now, he's absolutely 100% right. There's an age, on windows. When you get to a certain age, there's no efficiency. Back in the day, we're talking 1927, there was no energy was not a big deal. Well, today it really is. And I'm trying to help my tenant.
Right.
I want it to be efficient. And as far as, look at my structure. If I need to paint the front, I'll paint it. But though that's old aluminum siding, I'm not ripping that off. I purchased it. It was probably replaced back in the 60s. If I have to, way up on top where those 4 little windows are, that's a 3rd floor apartment. I can paint the peak, it's faded over the years. It's a green color, a very light green. And, but I have no intentions of, the only reason I'm doing this, sir, and ma'am, and ladies, and is because my tenant is concerned about his heating bill. So that's why I'm here.
All right. And so what's been expressed by the local design review committee and the landmarks staff is that, so you have other tenants in this building, and whether they've.
I do, and they're not complaining.
Right. So these are the only 4 windows in the unit of the one tenant that has complained?
Well,
Does he have other
as I
windows
said
in that unit?
Well, if you look at the front porch, he has a Browns flag up there. That's what that orange thing is. Beyond that orange flag, there's 2 windows that are recessed. Those are in his living room. The long, tall one, the one on the right-hand side in the front, it's a vestibule coming into his apartment. But that thing is not efficient at all. Not that the other ones are great, but look how massive that window is. The other window that's sitting next to it, that's out in the hallway before you go into his apartment. I just want to replace those 4 as of right now. I'm talking, I'm not doing it myself or some, random contractor. I mean, I went to Universal Windows. They have an excellent reputation. And if you want me to replace the other ones down the line, I like what that one guy said before I got to speak. I can do that. But, I only have so much money that goes around because, I have other properties within the city of Cleveland. And all of my properties look just like this. I take care of my places.
All right. With that, I'll open it up for questions and comments from my fellow commission members.
Ms. Anderson has her hand up.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is possible to replace the windows in a historic district. You don't have to keep the original windows. There are some guidelines for what can be installed to replace those windows. And I was wondering if Universal Windows are familiar with the guidelines for replacement of windows in historic districts, and if they have a product that would be suitable. And I was wondering if you knew that, or
what I was told by Universal Windows, that they've done a lot of work in this area. This is not the first rodeo show for Universal Windows in the area. They've been approved. And I've started this project back in the summertime. And my tenant is ready to pull out my hair and everyone else's. And I'm telling him that I don't know what the problem was, and I didn't. And when I start scratching the surface, there's hangups everywhere. And I'm trying to accommodate my town.
Oh, yes, I understand
And
that.
ma'am, one last thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you're getting down to, this kind of window, that kind of window, in red, right here on the top, it says universal windows. Those are the people that you need to speak with. I'm the landlord. I'm not the window guy. But you need to take all those questions and ask Universal Windows. And they've done other areas in that area, other projects, in that area.
Making a good point.
I think Ms.
Representative-
Beam,
Hello?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
to
was
the
gonna say, I
applicant,
think
the representative from Universal Windows should be
be
present
here
on the call.
I don't mean to interrupt. I have a job that I'll be speaking about coming up at 5811 Detroit. I do work for Universal Windows Direct. I'm a project lead. This project that you guys are referring to now is not mine. It's a coworker of mine named Josh's. I can do my best if you'd like to try. I don't know the schematics of the project with Neil here, but I could try to do my best in reference to this. My name is Matthew.
Matt, I appreciate you. I don't even know you, but I appreciate you stepping in.
No, that's
in my
okay.
defense, and
we
and also for my tenant.
I could do my best to answer those
This
questions.
has been going on for way too long.
Matt, do you understand Ms. Anderson's question?
Yeah, so in reference to the windows, there are 3 different styles, and I've been through the review board 3 times, and then this would be my first meeting with all you folks, so I appreciate your time. As far as using a Fibrex or composite structured window, which is essentially an administrative approved window, we're talking about a window that only is manufactured by a single company in the Ohio market. That's Renewal by Andersen. They have a patent on that style and that actual chemistry behind the frame technology of that window. So I understand that that could be administratively approved, but it also is about 3 times the cost of a window. You're talking about a Renewal by Andersen window that starts for one window, no matter what size, at $2,787 per window. That is a very expensive window. So it is usually typically not the first choice by numerous homeowners. The other alternative is a fiberglass. The reason why we don't use fiberglass is fiberglass does not perform well in varying temperatures where it goes from 60 degrees down to 20 degrees, back up to 50 degrees, back down to 15 degrees. The expansion and contraction factor of that frame creates a brittle frame, which will allow the frame to crack. It's also an uninsulated frame rail. So there's no insulation typically in a frame rail of that fiberglass, because the expansion and contraction of the insulation can cause the integrity of that frame to bow, warp, or essentially crack when that insulation on the interior of it reacts to the temperature outside and inside. It's also about a $2,500 window for one. Our vinyl material that we use is a pre-treated virgin material with a titanium dioxide coating and sealant. So it is limited in its expansion and contraction properties, but it also has the ability to perform in a varying temperature like what Cleveland does, going from, 5 degrees to 50 degrees, from 50 degrees to 25. It works along with the temperature change. That's why we're the only company in the state of Ohio that does what's called a true lifetime warranty, meaning that if anything happens to any part of the window, we cover it under us instead of a limited lifetime warranty.
I heard nothing but good about Universal Windows. I did my homework. I did my research. I'm retired from the engineer's office for Cuyahoga County. I got a very early retirement. I'm under PERS back in '02. I work right around the corner at the funeral home. I grew up with Jimmy Creation, Creation Berry Funeral Home. And I got nothing but good reviews from people at the funeral home, people that I work with, other people in the neighborhood. That's why I chose Universal Window. Just what he had to say.
All right, thank you, sir.
If you're looking at my picture, and you guys from a historical district, when I came around the corner, and I saw these discs on my house and I not gotten no approval whatsoever, I'd be looking at those discs. And since they're obsolete, believe me, come nice weather, those are going to be gone. I wouldn't be worrying about the windows. I'd be looking at those discs. They look terrible. And I will have those things removed. And thank you, Matt, again, for what you had to say in my defense.
All right, Mr. Tarasik, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions and a couple comments. To the applicant, sir, did I understand you correctly to say that a couple of those windows that you're looking to have replaced are in the vestibule or a common area, not necessarily in the apartment?
Only one.
For your tenants?
If you're only
one.
one. If you're looking at the picture, the one on the right-hand side, the two tall ones, that's in his apartment. The other one is outside, just before you get into the apartment, in the hallway. But they both sit next to each other. One. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And how many tenants do you have in this property?
I have two people on the first floor. I have a single gentleman on the second floor, and I have a very young couple, that just moved in not long ago on the third floor. And, I do have a legal triple. There's a lot of people around there, they bootleg. Well, mine's not bootlegged or bootleg. It's an actual.
I'm sorry,
I didn't hear
subsidized housing? Are they all
No, not at
subsidized
all.
housing as you referred to Section 8?
You know what? I've been
One is
doing
Section
this,
8?
sir. I've been doing this for years. 40 plus 40. When I first started, being a landlord, what I did is I had to anchor my homes down. What I mean by anchoring them down, I had Uncle Sam as my partner. And then as I got into this and, got more where I could, my footing was better financially, but I like, some of the programs and I like the tenants. It's really not the program, it's the people. And, I don't want to lose this gentleman. He's been with me for years. I owned a place, and you can write this down. I owned 4512 Franklin. His mother, this tenant's mother that we're talking about on the second floor, she was my tenant back in the 90s. I sold that place, 4512 Franklin, back in '05. I had to take care of my own mother. She cried her eyes out. She didn't want me to sell it.
Okay.
I have a
can we just stay on task with
I'm sorry.
consideration of this?
I'm just getting emotional because I just can't believe this.
All right. Mr. Tarasik asked a question about the status of the tenants in this facility. If you could answer that.
I guess what I'm getting at, sir, is I'm curious as to whether or not all of the tenants on this property are subsidized housing, are Section 8. And I guess the answer
No, they're
is
not. No, I said
not.
no.
Okay.
First floor is not, and the third floor is not, but the second floor is. And I'm just saying or reiterating that, I anchored my properties when I buy homes, and I have Uncle Sam as my partner. This is many years ago. I've been doing this for over 40 years. This is not my first rodeo show.
Do you have other properties in the city of Cleveland?
I do.
Yeah.
Do you have other properties? Do you have other properties in historic districts?
I did. I sold it. If you check 4512 Franklin, I owned that for many, many years. I did all the renovating on that. That was condemned from the city of Cleveland. Go buy it now. I don't own it anymore. I sold it in '05.
The only reason I'm asking these questions, sir, is because as was suggested in having a plan for the windows for the rest of the property, The only reason this question is because if there are other properties that might be in this condition within historic districts that you have within historic districts for the city of Cleveland, that we be consistent with how we resolve this issue with other issues that may come down the road with you on other properties. I'm not saying that they will. I'm just curious as to whether or not. And the other reason I asked for Section 8, the other reason I asked Section 8, whether it's Section 8, sir, is because I don't know if any exceptions have been made for Section 8 housing from what we typically do with respect to the windows. That's the reason for my questions.
No. I appreciate that. Okay. But like I said before, I've been a landlord for over 40 some years. This is the very first time I've ever come to a commission like yourselves. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I'm getting complaints from my tenant. And I agree with them. But sir, I don't pay the heating bill. You know, they do. I'm trying to be a good landlord. I'm listening. I take care of things that need to be taken care of. You know, you need to come into the house. If you think the outside is nice, you should come into the inside and see the inside in the way I take care of my properties. It's beautiful.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be
Mr. Chairman,
very much.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the only other comment.
Go ahead, Ray.
You know, if I may, the only other comment I'd like to make, if I may, is that given the fact that I think a comprehensive plan has been suggested, I would also ask my colleagues here to perhaps consider tabling this so that that plan could be presented along with specific representative from Universal Windows at this hearing. So I just ask for consideration of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I like what Matt said. You know, he works for Universal Windows and he has a project right around the corner, you know, and he's telling you about the product and it's an excellent product. I didn't just go willy-nilly
Point
and
of
just
order,
pick
Mr.
anybody.
Chair, he's out
You
of
know, I did my
order.
homework.
All right.
Can we keep on track following Robert's Rules of Orders?
Right. I'm not sure who suggested that, but yes. Mr. Sandberry, do you still have a question?
Yeah, I guess my one question, and it may have been answered and I may have missed it. Are these the original windows or have these been replaced at a certain date?
You know what? I can't answer that. And the reason I can't answer that is because I bought the property back in 1988. Those are the windows that's been there since 1988. So
do you know what
I
material
can't
these
answer
windows
that.
are?
Yeah, they're wood and they're wood.
Have they been clad in aluminum trim on the outside?
Oh, they have, but you know what? I did not do that. If I had to guess, sir, I would say that was all done. It's aluminum. That probably had to be done back in the 60s, but I don't know. You can see on the right-hand side, you can see where the driveway is. It would look like mine. It's wood, but it's all falling apart because they made them take it off. The old owner years ago. Look at mine versus that.
And then do you have, it looks like you have storms on the outside. Is that correct? Are those aluminum storms?
I do.
Okay. And that was,
you know, that's
prior
going to
to you
eliminate
purchasing this
that.
property too,
That will
right?
eliminate that.
So these
The
predate
new windows will
your
eliminate
ownership
that.
of this house?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Those predate the ownership of your ownership of this house? You didn't put those in, correct?
Yes, they do. Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably was done when the siding was done. I would guess maybe in the 60s. I used to walk by that all the time. I went to Old West High School.
And then, so the wood windows are still behind the storms. Are there any divisions in the windows or are they just one piece of glass over another piece of glass?
That's
You know,
exactly
like
right. They're
a
double hung.
Okay.
Yeah, they're double hung windows, the long, tall ones. And you know where the recessed porch is, there's two windows there. Those are also double hung also.
And or do they have a rope pull or do they have like a more modern interior?
No, they have the rope pull, but you know what? If you go to Home Depot, you can buy a hardware and you put the hardware in, you don't even see it. You don't have to go through with pulling out the weights and the ropes and you know, someone had told me years ago about it and it's amazing.
Okay, so it sounds like these are the original windows on the interior. They've been cladded with an aluminum. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
If I had
Thank
to
you.
guess, I'd say you're right.
All right.
Looks like Miss
Ms.
Beam has her
Bean,
hand up.
Ms. Bean, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I would just like to clarify from Ms. Anderson's comment earlier. When a permit application comes in for a window replacement, our window policy is sent to the company or applicant at that time. In this particular case, it was also resent to the applicant and the company with the follow-up from the design review meeting in December.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Williams?
Thank you very much, Mr. Strickland. I'm just looking quickly at it's a 45-page document that was submitted with the materials for this particular case. And the applicant, I believe, suggested a while ago that he's not the technical person, but he takes very good care of his properties. And I think the picture suggests that. But in listening to some of the comments from my colleagues on the commission, there seems to be maybe not quite a consensus yet, but several people who believe that it would be helpful to have someone from Universal Windows come back with the applicant and perhaps address some of the concerns that seem to be coming up. I'm looking at the name of a Mr. Josh Walzuk, I believe, if that's the correct pronunciation, with Universal Windows, who worked on this project. All of the measurements are there. I'm not the window expert either, but it seems like he probably is. I have heard the suggestion that perhaps we table this so that we can get a more detailed collection of information, if you will, maybe not another 45 pages, but certainly someone who can answer the questions about the windows, the current materials, and maybe a plan for going forward. I believe Mr. Dan Melson said that it would be helpful to know what a possible plan would be, even if the applicant did not want to implement every aspect of the plan at this point, but just to be able to suggest that perhaps in the future, these are some of the things that could happen with the other windows beyond the 4 that we've been discussing today. So again, it seems to me also that tabling this discussion for now would make sense, especially if we could get Mr. Josh Walzuk to come in from Universal Windows. And I just wondered what the rest of the commission members thought about that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Williams. Ms. Anderson?
I agree that tabling would be a good course of action at this point. I am concerned that Universal Window does not have a product that would meet the guidelines for the district, but that's something that hopefully between now and the next meeting, staff and the applicant and the window rep can discuss and figure out. So that's my comment.
All right. Thank you. It's been the recommendation of the Design Review Committee as well as Landmark staff and expressed by commission members that it would be advantageous to table this project until we could get a representative from Universal Windows present to answer some of these technical questions. Would the applicant agree to tabling this project, or would you like to move forward to a vote?
That's fine with me. I told you before, I don't pay the heating bill. But you know
Okay.
what? I'm shocked that he wasn't here,
Right. Well, you can talk to the representative and make
No,
sure.
don't worry. As soon as I'm done here with you guys, you don't think I'm going to call Universal Windows,
Right. Right. And
That's
that'll-
not right
that'll back you
for
up.
taking up your time or mine,
Right. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr.
I
Strickland,
will make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Chris Lozier. Sorry. Thanks, Ray.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Interim Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sandbury,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you. And to the applicant, I hope that you understand, the nature of our concerns and the
No, I get
additional-
it.
the additional information we're requesting, and we could make space for you as soon as the next meeting in 2 weeks, if you can get a representative available.
Oh, yeah, I'm calling them right now.
All right. All right.
Because that wasn't fair to myself or to all the members on the committee here, so I apologize for that, but
I agree.
I have no control over that. But
Right.
thank you very much for listening.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. We'll move on to the next case. Gordon Square Historic District, case number 25002, 5811 Detroit Avenue window replacement. And we already know that the representative is available. So would the applicant please identify themselves and tell us about your project?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Rosen. I'm a project lead with Universal Windows Direct, representing Nathan Shakuro on his window project. I had previously been in 3 of the design committees, and we did come up with a solution that sufficed for this project. As of the start, we were only looking to do a few windows. Obviously, that was not essentially how we want things to be done. So we were able to come to an agreement to do the windows on the front facing, the left and the right side, so that everything appears to be like for like. The front of the house has 2 double hungs on the front that were previously replaced at some point before Nathan's time. It's a double hung set, both left and right on the second floor. And then the lower section was added so that we can have a clean, unique front of this structure. The windows will be done like for like. They are going to be double hungs, white in, white out. The lower level will continue to be a triple set, will look and remain the same. The only alternative that was suggested by the review board that we did and were able to get an agreement with the homeowner is that the lower middle moles will match the upper mole for that nice Victorian effect in this area. So now everything will be cohesive versus having a mismatched top and bottom floor. In addition to that, it was recommended by the review committee that either we, as a extra to the customer, will install the customer's existing shutters that were removed prior to his ownership, or remove the upper shutters on the top floor so the actual house doesn't look unbalanced. And it does give it that clean look that needs to be unanimous with the area. As you can see in this picture here, it does look a little heavier at the top than the bottom. Myself will make sure that it matches. And like I said, that's going to be by adjusting the middle moles of the lower level to match the top. That's going to be with a thick capping, flashing, and drip edge so that everything does even out on the front of this home. And then either remove the shutters on the top floor to match, or reinstall the lower shutters on the bottom floor. The 2 windows on the left, I was told that will be able to be administratively approved because they're not front facing, and same with the 2 on the right. But the main focus was trying to get everything unanimously done at one motion. So that would include the capping, the flashing, the drip edge, 2 left, 5 front, 2 right, to match the area's design. Also tying it into the existing siding and J-channeling with a smooth sill to allow for proper drainage and performance of the home for the rest of this time the structure remains standing.
All right, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Very comprehensive presentation. We'll look for the Design Review Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Committee on November 20th, and then again on December 18th. In the first meeting, they looked at some of the side windows as well as the two on the second floor in the front. And so the committee wanted to see a full comprehensive view of that front done all at the same time. And so recommended that, or had a condition of that, that the two top windows be considered separate from the windows to be able to come back with a full plan for that front, which they did in December 18th. And so the committee then recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the vinyl replacement on the front of the home to be replacing the existing vinyl there. With that recommendation, as noted by the applicant, to have the middle portion of mutton with a thicker band to match the homes, the kind of sister homes at 5821 and 5823 Detroit, just down the road, and to have the shutters on the home be consistent, either both present on the first floor or removed on the, both present on the first floor or removed on the second floor.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And it appears as though the applicant has adjusted the scope based on design review comments. Landmark staff recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff agrees with the local. The windows have already been replaced with vinyl. We always prefer to see an upgraded material on the front, as our policy recommendations state. But given the facts of this case, we don't have an issue with the vinyl as long as there's that mullion dividing the windows on the first floor as is being proposed. Would recommend that, you know, in the shutter versus no shutter question, I think, you know, we'd prefer to see no shutters, since, especially on the first floor, since it's such a wide space, the shutters I think wouldn't look convincing. Yeah, recommend approval with no shutters.
That shouldn't be a problem. I don't know if the homeowner was really on the shutter bandwagon, so I think that should be no problem. That's done at install, so it's not actually a scope of work, so they'll just be removed. It would be no issue.
All right, thank you very much. Open it up for commission questions and comments. All right, seeing none at this time, I'll add my comments. Given this home had vinyl windows on the front previously, it's different than what we've seen in the last case where we were replacing original wood windows. So I don't have a problem with that, and I agree with the staff's comments that the shutters should be removed. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in agreement that with the staff that the shutters should be removed. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the vinyl windows in the front. I'm fine with them on the sides and the back. Only because we're trying to maintain and maybe upgrade a standard for the look and the quality of these homes. And I could see if there was a financial hardship. The property values have just skyrocketed in this area. So, you know, the overall value of these properties warrant the investment in a better quality material. So I'm somewhat uncomfortable with replacing the vinyl with the vinyl because of that. I could see that if it was in a more depressed area where the value of the property does not warrant that kind of cash input. But in this area, I feel it is the more appropriate thing to do would be to replace the vinyl with it just in the front with a higher quality material. Those are my comments.
Understood. Carl, I'm going to ask you to weigh in with regard to Secretary of Interior standards with regard to requirement to upgrade materials, or is it does it allow for vinyl replacing vinyl?
The Secretary of Interior standards say replacing in kind. So that could be interpreted any other way. So there are existing vinyl windows there, so replacing them with vinyl, it's technically in kind. What we don't know is when those windows were installed. We don't know if they were installed following proper guidelines. Because if they were you see many many instances where they have replaced windows illegally or without permits or such. I think it would take a little bit deeper dive to find out when these were installed, if it was before the historic district was in effect. There's a couple of other things that go in there, and maybe Mr. Musson can answer some additional questions on that. Thanks.
Dan, do you have an additional input?
Yeah, I guess just to chime in, this house had several twins on the block. I believe there were 4 or 5 of them originally, and from what we can tell historically, they all were built identically or exact mirror images of each other. So where the first floor kind of picture window or the wider windows are was originally a slight projection with 2 taller windows, as you see on the blocks further down. So there was significant alteration to the first floor. I think presumably done before this was made a historic district, because I think this area was just added in the early 2000s. So it hasn't been a district that long, but there was significant alteration that went along with the replacement of these windows. It wasn't just popping windows in an opening.
I see. Helpful. Ms. Anderson, do you have further comments?
Yes, I do. I have a follow-up question, and I don't know whether the representative's going to know this. Did the owners have plans to remove the siding or replace the siding? And in that case, I would at least want to see, a window trim around the window. Right now, the siding abuts the window. There's no trim. So that was, I don't know whether the representative would know that, but that was the question I have.
Yeah, the homeowner and I have not discussed the siding project. Obviously home renovation projects are expensive. I know the homeowner does not have unlimited funds. So at this point, the siding was not a topic of the conversation. Can I say that it won't be later? Who knows? Obviously I'm readily available to help him out with any project. But as far as the trim, we do capping, flashing, and drip edge and integrate it into the existing sidings J channeling. So it will have a trim package installed with the new ones, similar to what you see on the right there. Obviously not as predominant because the siding is an older style, and we can't cut and paste and move all that to essentially make the trim work. But we do it with the integration of the window install. So it does carry a very clean and beautiful look after the new windows are installed.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a clarification comment because it wasn't clear to me during the presentation. Is the intent that there's going to be decorative muntins within the window, or are they just going to be single pieces of glass, one on top of the other?
There's no grids going on these. The muttons, the muttons at the bottom, or the mullions, what goes in between the windows, will match the upper to the lower, so that it carries over a cohesive look in reference to the age of these properties in this area.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was my only question.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, I would entertain a motion. Somebody's got to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the recommendation that we remove the shutters from the design.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sandberry. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Alan.
Thank you, Alan. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Dan, please call the roll.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Interim Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberry,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you very much to the applicant, and good luck with your project.
Thank you guys for your time. I know this won't be the last time I see you, so next time I will be more prepared, one and done type of problems here. So thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You as well. Happy New Year.
You too.
Okay, we'll move on to case number 25003, Brantwood Allotments Historic District, 10704 Pasadena Avenue, window and siding replacement. Would the applicant please introduce themselves and tell us about your project?
Yes, my name is Larry Crenshaw. And I was just replacing basically my windows and my siding. As you can see in some of there are no windows basically, and the siding is not completely gone, but more than half gone.
All right, Mr. Crenshaw, you want Carl to just scroll through your pictures?
Yes, I believe I already made the presentation last time. I didn't know I had to present the same thing.
Yeah, our process requires that you make a presentation of the design review committee, and then we're the landmarks commission. The design review committee is advisory to us, but this is the first time we've seen your project.
Okay, I apologize then. So basically, I have a quote of the windows being replaced and the siding being replaced. So the front windows will all be replaced, except for I have two historical windows at the top with an arc. Those will be basically refurbished, repaired. But there are basically no windows in any of the frames except for the first floor bottom two. And then my siding, I also have a quote for the siding, and it will also be replaced because it's basically gone.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. And so can we have the design review committee comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on December 17th. They discussed the replacement of the vinyl siding with the light blue vinyl siding and new white windows coming in. They also noted the stucco in that front gable. In that meeting, the applicant mentioned that that would be just kept and painted and not covered in vinyl. And the arch windows, as our applicant mentioned, would be repaired and not replaced. And so the committee recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for that proposed vinyl siding with those two arched windows on the front, repaired instead of replaced. Also noting that the porch and door would return at a later date for review.
Okay, so those are excluded from the scope at this point. And staff recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff agrees with local. I guess, like I said, we as previously said, we always like to see higher quality windows on the front, but given the condition of this property and what the owner is trying to undertake, we are happy to see someone investing time and money into this property as opposed to letting it sit vacant. So just also the note that the porch and door will have to return for final approval from this commission.
All right. Thank you. We'll open it up for comments and questions. I have one or two to start off. Can the applicant tell us the condition of the existing roof and if there's any plans or needs to replace the roof?
The roof was recently replaced before I got it, and then I had a few repairs done to it, so the roof is in perfect condition. It's completely fine. There's no leaks in the house whatsoever.
That's good news. Good news for you.
Yeah, I got that one.
The other question I had, you may have been present for our last presentation. There was a similar question or comment. When you replace the siding, the existing windows have a exterior casing surrounding the windows. And if the siding can either be brought up to the edge of that casing and the casing's wrapped in aluminum, or the siding can go over the casing. It's called a jump casing, where the casing is covered by the siding. Can you tell us what you intend to do with the casing of the existing frames?
The casing of the existing frames, I was actually just gonna leave them there and box them in around. But I mean,
wrap them in aluminum?
I was gonna actually just leave them original wood, paint over them, and seal the seams.
Paint the wood.
Right.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. I'll open it up for other questions and comments. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the applicant taking on this huge project. This house was sitting vacant for a very long time, is in very poor condition. So I really commend the applicant and admire his ability to take on a project like this. I have a few comments. I'm really happy that the applicant's going to be keeping the half timber stucco on the third floor and the two arch windows, that he's going to be keeping those. Regarding the siding, normally we don't want to see the vinyl on the front, but I think in all practicalities, it probably makes sense. The current vinyl that's on there has a drop lap or Dutch lap siding, which is not typical for this area or this vintage of home. The siding that's would be more appropriate, and that is you're based on the profile of the original underneath the vinyl would be just a regular flat kind of flush, clapboard. So that is something I would like to see, is that the vinyl mimic the original as opposed to the drop lap. And I'm happy to see that the applicant's going to retain the wood window casings. That's excellent. So, and given the number of vacant properties in this area and the overall challenge of renovating them within a budget that is conforms to what the value is of a renovated home in this area, I can approve the vinyl and the vinyl windows. So again, I commend the applicant for taking on this project and for some of the thoughtful decisions he's made.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any other commission members' comments or questions? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a couple of questions and comments. So it looks like the existing or the current siding materials are stucco, which is at sort of the top, portions of the facades as you move around the house. Existing wood siding, and then on the front looks like there's some vinyl siding. Is that correct? There's those three materials currently?
Yes, it's the vinyl, the stucco. That's basically it. And then the wood siding is, I guess, from the regular vinyl siding being ripped off or blown off or whatever happened to it.
Okay. Thank you. And then I guess to clarify, are you intending to install vinyl siding over the upper stucco portion?
No, not over the stucco portion.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks. And so the intent there is to, clean and repair and paint
Right.
those areas, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. There's also seems to be a lot of other decorative detailing, especially on the front. There looks like there's corbels that are sort of positioned underneath the front gable. Is the intent to repair and retain those as well?
You said there are horrible.
The wood, so there's like little wood pieces that look like they're supporting the upper triangular piece of the front of the house, the peak of the house. It's hard to tell from some of the photos.
Okay, I'm not understanding your question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you asking me, am I gonna reinforce that or?
No. Can you go to Carl? Can you go to one of the other photos? It's like sort of a 3/4 view of toward the side. This one here. I don't know if you can zoom in at all, Carl, but looks like there's some decorative.
Oh yes, I see.
Pieces there.
Those are gonna be repaired. They're in good condition, but yes, those are gonna be repaired. It's just a little bit of a dog house right there, so it's not much.
Okay, great. No, I'm glad that that's what your intent is there. I guess I am in agreement. I think, and I really appreciate you taking on this project. And I think what the vinyl will help do is to continue to preserve this structure into the future. My recommendation would be to install the vinyl siding over the existing wood siding so that is maintained. So if in the future you or the next person who acquires this property could potentially repair and retain that existing historic wood siding, I think that would be my recommendation. But I'm in agreement with a couple of my colleagues with the vinyl siding and the vinyl windows. And again, I really appreciate you making this investment. It's a really special house. There's a lot of really incredible detailing, and again, this is what I think we hope to see in these neighborhoods is really carrying on the legacy and preserving pieces of architecture like this into the future. So thank you.
Yeah, I love lap siding. If I could, I would. I did a couple projects with just straight lap siding or repairing the lap siding. So if I could, I would. I really like it better than vinyl anyway.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Any further comments? I'll just add and echo the comments of my fellow commissioners that I really commend the applicant for taking on this project and saving this structure. It's full of details, and looking forward to that being retained and restored. So with that, I will entertain a motion. Mr. Lozier?
I do have one more question before potentially making a motion, and this may ultimately go into the motion, but it looks like the siding color, you have the siding color included as sort of a screenshot in the presentation, meadow fern, but do you know the colors that you're going to be painting the stucco and the wood that's in sort of in those stucco areas, as well as the color of the window trim that you're going to paint?
I was just gonna basically go with a traditional white or a darker blue to color, basically give it a different color. A darker blue as the stucco, and then white trim.
Okay. So what I might, I'll make a motion, but what I might recommend, or what I'll add as a condition is that final coloration be reviewed and approved by Landmark staff. But I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve as presented, but to finalize color selections with staff.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. We have a motion with a condition for staff approval of final colors. We have a second.
I'll second. This is Mike Samberry.
All right, Mr. Samberry, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
No, yes, I wanted to bring up the replacement of the siding with a I don't know the exact name of it, but like a flush siding that matches the original,
Right.
as opposed to lap.
It's just a straight lap, it's called.
Straight lap. Thank you.
Right.
I agree with that.
I would agree as well.
Okay. We have a motion and a second with two conditions regarding the color and the profile of the siding be straight lap siding. Dan, please call a roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland, or I'm sorry, Mr. Samberry,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is approved unanimously.
All right. Very good. Wish the applicant all the best. And I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, after the meeting, what would be my next steps to?
You
Will y'all
can
be sending a
you can
letter?
you can submit to you have to submit the final siding selection and final colors to Landmarks just for record, but you can submit for a building permit.
So I can go and submit for the building permit.
Is once you've submitted the final colors and siding profile to Landmarks.
So then it would have to be reviewed again.
No, well, yeah, they can review it administratively. You don't have to come back before us.
Okay. And because the house was condemned, would this be taking it off the condemned list so I can do my permits for the inside as well?
You'll have to respond to the condemnation and the building code violations associated with that and have that cleared by the building department. You can do that as part of the permitting process.
Yeah, staff is happy to work with you offline to link you up with building and housing to make sure that you can get everything that you need. Not only to move forward with this portion of the project, but with the rest of your project and your permits that'll be required to get the property out of condemnation. So yeah, we can talk either this afternoon or tomorrow and get you on the right path for that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Good luck with your project.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. All right, we'll move on to our last certificate of appropriateness. Sorry. Is case number 25004, Gordon Square Historic District, 5007 Detroit Ave demolition. Would the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
Hi, my name is Florenza and I'm representing Metro Demolition. I'm sure that the owner is also on the line, Mr. Mazet, and the LLC is called the Orient Glory LLC. What I was hired to demo this property and I was asked to go through the design review process along with the owner. And I'm not sure if Mr. Mazet is on the line as well. Maybe you can hear us. Anyway, so basically he's trying to demolish this property and some other properties that he owns in the same area so he can rebuild. 5007 Detroit is in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood close to Lake Erie. The area is known for its artsy vibe with nearby attractions like the Gordon Square Art District, shops, restaurants, and theaters. It's a popular area for local businesses and cultural events. All the properties next to it are commercial. They're mostly owned by the same owner. Some properties are owned by the Cuyahoga Land Bank and another private owner. I don't have that name right now. The Orient Glory LLC has expressed interest in acquiring all of the properties so he can have the ownership of the area. These are the pictures of the front and rear. As you can see, left-hand side pictures of the property, interior photos. As you can see, there is really nothing inside, no plumbing, no heating system. The property lacks essential infrastructure such as plumbing and a climate control system, and the cost of fixing it would be higher than demolishing the property. The roof is also in severe condition, which makes it harder to fix it. These are the properties next to it. Property on the south and the opposite of the property. So basically, the owner wants to acquire all the properties around it. He wants to demolish all structures and to construct new buildings. He wants to transform these underutilized buildings into a functional space featuring retail stores for lease on the ground level and condominiums above. This project aims to enhance the area, providing new opportunities for both businesses and residents. So our plan is to demolish the structure, remove all foundation, everything, level the site with clean backfill, topsoil, seed, and straw. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Can we have the Design Review Committee's report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on December 18th. They discussed the current condition of the building as well as the plan for the site. They did recommend the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for this particular building, with the wanting to see a site plan submitted for future construction as it was noted, and had noted a concern for future plans for the site, but in the interim, the grass was fine with them.
All right, thank you. And Landmarks staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff visited the building on December 16th. Since at this time, this current scope does not include new construction or other demolitions on the block, and with the understanding that the applicant would follow city code and keep the lot clean and green after demolition, we believe that the building's removal would have no adverse effect on the historic district because it's non-contributing. The structure was constructed in 1977.
All right, thank you very much. I'll open it up for commission questions and comments. Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm hoping to get some clarification on the size of the parcel that we're looking at. Is it just the sort of the building itself that this parcel is, or is the asphalt parking lot next door to it part of this as well?
First of all, I would like to say that the owner is on the line. All right, sorry.
Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, my name is Mazen Hamade. I'm the owner of the property, and Happy New Year. Thank you for your time. This property was constructed on 1977. From the day when it was poorly designed and constructed. So it's not surprising that after 48 years, the building is falling apart. And it's an eyesore now. When the Design Review Advisory Committee visited the site, they felt it has no historic or architectural value, no economic value. So they unanimously approved or were in favor of demolishing. Now, we are trying to move in the demolishing process parallel to the rebuilding process. Demolishing process so far, it took 6 to 7 months, and I expect if you approve it today, it will take additional months or two to achieve the true demolishing of the building. At the same time, we are going in rebuilding process. We are trying to survey the area and see what business is needed for the community, for the area. Because I believe the design of the new business or new building, the design and size shall be tailored to the nature of the business to enhance its presentation and its function and operation. So far, we don't know what is the replacement business will be suitable for that area, because we want the tenant to do well financially and be able to pay rent for the landlord, which is myself. So once we identify what nature of business is suitable for the area, and we are not talking about business for a few years, we want to be ahead of time. We want to have a business suitable for 10, 15, 20 years for the area. Once we identify the nature of the business, we are going to design the building size and shape to enhance the business presentation and operation. So we are trying now to get the site ready for rebuilding by demolishing existing eyesore, non-functional building, which has been vacant for the past 10, 12 years there. So hopefully, if we can achieve that goal and demolish the building, we can have better structure there that serves the community better, has better value for the community, and turn this unused space to a functional, valuable space. I have a bigger vision. I'm not certain if it will come true. I own 70% of the block from West 50 to West 52 on Detroit Avenue. There is two other owners. One of them is City of Cleveland. They have 2 vacant parcels from Land Bank and one private owner. I submitted application to City of Cleveland to obtain these 2 vacant parcels from the Land Bank, and the application is still pending. If I'm able to purchase additional parcels there, which are all vacant, I can develop the entire block, not only this little building. But if my bigger plan is not achievable, then I will develop this little building and replace it by a better building. So that
All
will
right, thank you.
conclude
Thank you for that
my
additional
presentation.
information. All right, thank you. Mr. Loge, you do want to re-ask your question?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation and the additional context. My question was related to the size of the parcel that we're talking about. Is it the building that we're talking about plus the asphalt parking lot next door? Is that the full extent of the property that we're talking about?
Okay, they are 2 separate parcels. The building and there's little concrete in the front of the building. That's one parcel, and the asphalt area is second parcel. I own both of them. Now, the development, yes, will include both parcels. I will ask rezoning to zone them as one parcel, combine both together, and develop both parcels. But as of today, they are 2 separate parcels, and I own both of them, but I will ask to combine both parcels in one and develop both parcels.
Okay, thank you. As part of the demolition, do you also intend to remove the asphalt, parking area, as well as the concrete that extends from the front of the building to the sidewalk, and level the site and then include the topsoil, seed, and straw? Or is the intent to only do that where the building footprint is?
Let me tell you, time flies very quickly. As I mentioned, in demolishing process, we've been 6 months, and we anticipate 2 additional months. If the rebuilding project goes faster, I will not restart the area, but obviously I will remove during demolishing, I will remove the asphalt and the concrete, that's for sure. But if the rebuilding and backfill, if the rebuilding process go quick, I will not restart the area. But if I feel there is delay in the rebuilding process, I will restart the area. But certainly, asphalt, concrete will be removed. It will be backfilled with regular dirt, and will make the site ready for rebuilding. But if there is a delay, I will add SAB. No delay, no SAB.
Understood. Thank you. That was my question.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
I see no reason to demolish this building. It doesn't contribute. It's been vacant and pretty useless for a long time. So, I'm in support of the demolition. What I want to point out is the building to the west of that building. Looks like that one might be vacant too. I would not be in support of that building to the west, because it is contributing, but I am in support of the demolition of 5007 Detroit.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Musson?
Yeah, thank you. Just to Ms. Anderson's point, the building immediately to the west is finishing up its rehabilitation through the city's storefront renovation program. So with the city making a significant investment, partnering with the owner of that building, we would not be in favor of losing that one either.
May I add a comment?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, the building you are talking about, certainly it had been remodeled recently and it looked very nice and historic now. It used to be in poor condition before remodeling in the past 2 years. That building will be preserved. If I own the entire block with or without that building ownership, I'm going to develop the block keeping that existing building, and it will not be demolished. But if you go a little bit west of that building, the immediately adjacent building to the west of the one you are mentioning, that building also needs to be demolished, and it has the address of 5103 Detroit Avenue. That building is 120 years old. It was designed as a factory for bolts and nuts. It has been vacant for 50 years. It's beyond any rehab because the architectural design and structure is industrial, is a factory. So that building is my next project to demolish, which is west of the building you mentioned. The building you mentioned will be preserved, but the building after that to the west will be demolished because it has been vacant for at least 50 years. It's an industrial building that has been deserted.
All right.
After
Thank you.
Closed.
Thank you very much. We're just going to restrict our comments to the one address that's being considered for demolition. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I don't have the ability to raise my hand here. Just because our standard procedure, we usually like to see something, whatever the future use is of, since it's not being seen here, and this is similar to what we did over off of Detroit up in Ohio City, that the motion also include that for this is why it's not being seen, the reasons for the demolition is being allowed without new construction going up. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. So normally when we
I understand what you're saying, Carl. I don't know what we need to include in the motion specifically.
Due to the fact that this is not rehabable, it doesn't have the running water and all that, or whatever that is, that in this case only, that it is appropriate not to have a future use at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Seeing no other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion. Okay, Mr.
Chris
Lozier.
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
You have to please
Without
include in your
without the without the plans for future use.
Beautiful. Thank you. We have a motion with a clarification. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Dan, please call the roll.
And Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Interim Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have a
Thank you for your
question.
presentation. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. I have a question. Do I still need a permit from Cleveland City Planning Commission, or I don't need the Director of Planning Commission to sign off?
No,
Yeah,
it's since you're in a landmark district, landmarks will sign off. I don't believe planning would be signing off on anything related to this, but we can confirm all of what's needed for you to pull your permits offline after the meeting.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
So this was the last meeting, correct?
Yes. The last meeting. All right. Thank you. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with
I
your
appreciate
project.
it.
You have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You too. All right. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll move on to administrative reports. Dan, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, just that next meeting we should be back to the kind of hybrid in person, back to using 514 after they make their updates. Hopefully it'll be a little I guess better functioning as far as the microphones and some of the issues we've had over the last couple of years. I guess wanted to also mention that we expect New Sardis Primitive Baptist Church on Kinsman to be designated at this upcoming Monday's City Council meeting as our newest Cleveland landmark. Carl's been working on that nomination and getting that through our process. I believe you guys nominated it towards the end of last year, so it's been working through its legislative process since then. And then just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick 2024 recap. We had 143 new design review cases, and those made up 81 unique design review committee meetings. Of those cases, 93 went on to the Landmarks Commission. We had 22 commission meetings, and staff processed 447 permits over the course of the year. So, so the numbers are, I guess, pretty on par with previous couple of years. We don't really know about the design review stuff before that because we weren't handling it in-house and reporting wasn't always great.
Right.
And, but yeah, we're certainly keeping busy here. We didn't have the big rush at the end of last year that we had the previous year with the tax abatement sunsetting. So we still, I think, had a good busy year. And this year seems like it should be on par. That is
Very
all I
good.
have.
Very good. Thank you for that report. And I'm sure that it will be a very busy year. So looking forward to it. All right. If that concludes all of our agenda items, I'll adjourn the meeting and look forward. Well, I won't see anyone on the 23rd. I'll be absent from that meeting, but good luck on the 23rd. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Good to see you all.